Good morning. Welcome to my channel. This is Queen Esther Waynes Frank. In case you are new to my channel, your all-time favorite diplomat. All right, in our previous video, we talked about diplomacy, and we are still on the issue of diplomacy. And today, the key thing we want to talk about is functions of diplomacy. And the number one thing, the main function of diplomacy, which will be considered in other functions or sub functions of diplomacy. Okay, before we talk about functions of diplomacy, what we should know is, which I think I already mentioned that in my previous video, that diplomacy existed since the beginning of human race. It's not a new ideology, it's not a new philosophy of life. It's something that have long existed as far as this life is concerned, as far as the world is concerned. And it was known as a traditional diplomacy. That is the name I can give to it, because diplomacy today has taken a different shape. It's not all about tradition, not all about norms, it's not all about culture. It has gone beyond that. So that is why it's not being regarded as traditional diplomacy anymore, but diplomacy existed a long time ago. So this will be noted. We'll see that diplomacy has taken a different shape, not that it has changed completely. No, it's only taken a different shape following the present world system, following this present world situation. That is why diplomacy has taken a different shape. On this video too, through looking at the functions of diplomacy, we'll be able to consider the importance of diplomacy. Why is it important? And in a subsequent video, we'll talk about types of diplomacy, future of diplomacy, and why diplomacy is really needful when it comes to international relations and instruments of diplomacy, because there are several instruments used by diplomacy in its operation. So you stay tuned while we take the function. The number one function of diplomacy, which I can call it the main function or the basic function, the key function of diplomacy, is to ensure peaceful existence, ensure peaceful relations between nations. This is very important. Without ensuring peaceful relations between nations, there is no diplomacy. And you cannot talk about diplomacy without considering the art of peace, because diplomacy itself is peace. Peaceful coexistence through negotiation, through bargains, through dialogue. So you cannot evict the issue of peace, peaceful coexistence. That is why diplomacy main function is to ensure peaceful relations among nations, between nations, and among individuals or between individuals. All right. So now other functions is negotiating trade deals. Negotiating trade deals is not far-fetched, it's something that is done day to day. It's the ability for a country to negotiate the price of their product to another country, and this can be done with through representation. Every country have a representative in the international market. It's not everybody that can just move to international markets and start negotiating price. It's not like your local market that you can do anything, you negotiate your price. This one, there is a representative that is actually there to do these bargains, and the ability for this representative to use its bargaining power to convince the buyer or the other country to buy the product at the given price. It's what brings in diplomacy. And this is not done with war, with force. It's a peaceful dialogue that this is when I want to sell my product. Do you want to buy that way? And it's too much. This is the price I want to buy. So it's the ability for that country to be able to negotiate the price, the bargaining power with another country to purchase the product. Just like in Nigeria, we have crude oil, and we send out our crude oil to the international market to be refined into a finished goods, and which we have petroleum today. And we have a bargaining price, a bargaining power. We have a price tag for each barrel of oil, and this price tag is favorable to the country and as well as the buyer. If it's not favorable to the country, the buyer will also, the representative from another country which is buying the product or purchasing the product, will also bargain the price. No, this is too much, or this is the price I want to buy. But both of them must come to agreement, oh, this is the exact price, which is not against the other, the owner of the product and the buyer of the product. So that is the ability of the country. Okay, we move to discussing mutual problems. There are mutual problems that almost every countries of the world are having, and that mutual problem that is common is terrorism. So this is the thing that diplomacy does. A country comes together to discuss on the issue to fight against terrorism. I can remember in President Goodluck Jonathan's regime, you had this issue of Boko Haram was a new thing, a new terrorist group as at that time, not presently. And President tried to fight it on its own within the nation, but he couldn't. So what did he do? He had to call for international aid, calling on Israel and other nations to come in to help him fight terrorism, probably arsenal, that is the military aid or financially. So this is the mutual problems that are facing among nations or between nations, that they have to, come to a solution, to profound solution to this particular problem. So it's the work of diplomacy for countries to come together to discuss this issue that is disturbing them, that is a problem to them, and the profound solution to it. And this has to do with gathering and evaluation of information. Just like I said, you can't just call someone, and it's a kind of a round table conference. You sit, you talk, you evaluate what exactly is the problem, what is the way forward, what can we do to be of help. Is it to send arsenals and military men, or is it to help you financially, or what is the way forward, what can we do? Is it to send armament? So this is a dialogue, this is a gathering, and by gathering, they are able to evaluate the information they've gotten so far and come to a certain solution or a conclusion which will lead to the solution of the problem. The next function is implementing new policies. Like I said in my previous videos, that a country's foreign policy should not be rigid. This is one of the things. It should not be rigid in the sense that your foreign policy has to do with another person's foreign policy. As such, your foreign policy should be something that can be amended, that can be suitable for your relationship with other nations, your diplomatic relation, your peaceful coexistence, your peaceful relationship with another. So this is implementing new policies, just like to facilitate implementation of international law. This law is set aside by the United Nations to checkmate the activities of every member country in the United Nations, so to say, and in the international space or international system. Every member country is being checkmated using international law. I know it's a problem going on now between Ukraine and Russia, and it's actually this policy that they're using to, stop Russia from doing some things against Ukraine. As a member country, there are some things you should do and should not do, right? And you must keep to it. If you do not keep to this, there is a judgment for it. There is a penalty, so to say. There is a penalty to it. And when this penalty is signed by the member of the United Nations and the key member, the permanent members of the United Nations, which are 5 in number, and that is final. And whatever you do will be used against you. So implementing of new policies that are suitable for members, the country members of the United Nations, of the international space, it's what diplomacy also does. This law, or the law, is not just set by one particular country, it's agreement between other countries, and that is diplomacy. So tackling disputes can be put, it's not just about war. The disputes cannot just based on war. Of course, you should know that Disputes can be economical disputes, having inflation in the country, and this is what work of diplomacy. What can we do to help this country out of the inflation, or what can we do to help this country to boost or stabilize its economy? So this is one of the things that tackling disputes they tackle. It's all about, and politically, and you can see the last election we just concluded, you have international observers. This was the work of tackling dispute. This is the work of diplomacy. This is the work of diplomacy, tackling disputes, observing the political system. Are we actually operating democracy? And when there was a problem, they are at the end of the exercise, they are to give their own report, their own comment on what they noted or what they noticed about the election. So it has to do with economy, political, aid, and cultural relations. Every country has their own cultural beliefs and culture, the way of doing things. So the ability to relate peacefully without interfering, without having issues, without being infringed with another person's culture. So this is the work of diplomacy. This is the work of diplomacy. So that's what tackling disputes does: economy, politics, aid, and cultural relations. So we made mention of Arsenal, which has to do with military aid and call for military aid, and technology. You can learn, like we have artificial intelligence, AI, and other countries of the world are so good at that, like South Korea and China, and those countries, they are good with artificial intelligence. So you can tap knowledge from them when it comes to technological know-how. When their technology is growing, you as a country, as a relative country, a diplomatic country, a member country, you can tap knowledge from theirs. And mutual friendship, this is the main thing that deals with diplomacy: mutual friendship, mutual understanding, mutual relations. So thank you guys. This is where I'm going to end the video for today. In our next video, we continue from types and other aspects of diplomacy. God bless you. Have a nice day. Bye.